What if I told you there's an actual formula for happiness? I know, it sounds a little out there, right? But one of the most brilliant psychologists of our time actually tried to map it out. So today, we're diving into the science behind joy with the happiness equation. So let's just ask it straight up. Is there a formula for happiness? It seems like a pretty strange question. But according to the founder of positive psychology, a guy named Martin Seligman, the answer is a surprising yes. Let's get into what that really means. And here it is. H equals S plus C plus V. I know, it looks like a flashback to high school math class, but stick with me. This simple little formula is Seligman's framework for understanding our enduring level of happiness. Not just a good mood that comes and goes, but our long-term baseline level of contentment. So, what on earth do these letters actually stand for? All right, time to crack this code. Let's decode the variables. Each one of these letters represents a key part of our well-being. And trust me, how they're weighted is probably not what you're expecting. Okay, this is where things get really fascinating and honestly kind of mind-blowing. Take a look at this. A full 50%, half, of our happiness is determined by our genetic set point. And our life circumstances, money, job, where we live, a tiny 10%. That leaves this huge 40% chunk that's all about factors under our voluntary control. Let's break down what each of those really means. So the S stands for your set points, and it's responsible for that massive 50%. The easiest way to think about it is like a happiness thermostat that you're born with. It's your genetic baseline. This explains something called the hedonic treadmill. You know how it is. You get a big promotion and you're on cloud nine for a while, or you go through a tough setback and it feels awful. But eventually, you kind of just drift back to your usual self. That's your set point, pulling you back to your baseline. Next up is C for circumstances, and this is the one that really trips people up. It's only about 10% of our lasting happiness. This includes all the stuff we spend so much of our lives chasing. More money, a better job, moving to that perfect sunny place. Now, these things can definitely give you a temporary boost, for sure, but their long-term impact on your overall well-being is surprisingly small. And that brings us to V, voluntary control. This right here is the crucial 40%. This is where the magic happens. It's not about what happens to you. It's about your intentional thoughts, your choices, and your actions. This is the part of the happiness equation where we have real, genuine power. So, the big question is, how do we leverage that 40% to build a truly fulfilling life? While Seligman's work gives us a roadmap, he lays out 3 different paths we can take to really master that 40% and cultivate a more satisfied life. He calls these the pleasant life, the good life, and the meaningful life. And you don't have to pick just one. In fact, the most fulfilled people tend to walk all 3. But each path helps us focus on a different aspect of our well-being. First up, the pleasant life. This is probably what most of us think of when we hear the word happiness. It's all about pleasure, savoring a delicious meal, laughing with good friends, appreciating a beautiful piece of music. It's about filling your life with as much positive emotion and good vibes as you can. Second is the good life, which is all about engagement. This path is less about feeling good and more about doing something absorbing. It comes from experiencing what psychologists call flow. You know that state, right? When you're so completely lost in an activity that time just seems to melt away. That happens when we use our greatest talents, what Seligman calls our signature strengths, to meet a challenge. And finally, there's the meaningful life. This path goes deep. It's about taking those same signature strengths and using them for a purpose that's bigger than just you. Whether that's through your family, your community, or a cause you truly believe in, it's about contributing to the greater good. Now, don't get me wrong, the pleasure life is great, but the research is super clear on this. The good life and the meaningful life, that's engagement and meaning, have the strongest, most lasting impact on our overall satisfaction. I like to think of it this way. Pleasure is the icing on the cake, but engagement and meaning, that's the actual cake itself. But you know what? The story doesn't end there. As his research went on, Seligman realized that even the word happiness was just too limiting. He wanted to shift his focus from just happiness to the broader, more complete idea of well-being. And that led to a big evolution in his theory. This led to what he called his well-being theory. The goal was no longer just about increasing life satisfaction. It was about understanding what helps people truly flourish. What are the building blocks that make life feel genuinely worth living? So this new theory expanded those original 3 paths into 5 core elements of well-being. He kept the original ideas of pleasure, engagement, and meaning, but he added two absolutely crucial new ones: relationships and accomplishment. And he gave this new framework a great acronym: PERMA. So, the PERMA model breaks down like this. P is for positive emotion, E is for engagement, R is for relationships, M is for meaning, and A is for accomplishment. Seligman argues that these five things are the fundamental building blocks for human flourishing. So why the new additions? Well, relationships were added because, let's face it, we are fundamentally social creatures. Positive connections with other people are one of the most reliable drivers of well-being. And accomplishment was added because we often pursue success and mastery just for its own sake, not because it brings us pleasure or meaning, but just for that deep satisfaction of achieving something. Okay, we've looked at the original equation, the three paths, and the expanded PERMA model. So what do we do with all this? How can we put it into practice to actually start crafting a life with more well-being? I think this quote from Seligman really gets to the very heart of it all. He says, "Use your signature strengths and virtues in the service of something much larger than you are." It so perfectly captures the essence of that meaningful life. It's about knowing what you're good at, and then using those gifts to make a difference, no matter how big or small. So, what are the big takeaways from all this? First, happiness isn't just one simple thing. It's a complex recipe with lots of ingredients. Second, and this is the most empowering part, a huge 40% of your happiness is up to you. And finally, a truly flourishing life isn't just about chasing pleasure. It's about building a balanced life full of positive emotions, engagement, meaning, relationships, and accomplishment. Which brings us right back to the beginning. That formula, H equals S plus C plus V. It's not something you can just punch into a calculator to get a number. It's a mental model. It's a guide. It reminds us where we can and where we can't focus our energy. So the final question is for you to think about. Now that you know the variables, how will you solve your own happiness equation?